Hello and welcome to the second night of Forge Debates for your Sheffield Students' Union Officer Elections 2017. I'm Emily.
And I'm Nick. And tonight we're going to see the debates between the candidates for your Students' Union activities, international students, sports and education officers.
At the end of each set of questions, we'll be coming back here to scrutinise and analyse everything that was said.
It's going to be a great night and it'll give you the best opportunity to find out who you want for your next union officers.
But right now, we're going to go live to Alex Goldsmith for the first debate.
Another night, another debate, and another kimono. Welcome back to Forge Debates. We're live in Fusion tonight, and we're going to be hearing from the candidates for activities, for international officer, for sport, and for education. Each candidate will first give a brief opening statement, and then we will hear a bit more about their policies via some questions. You can join us on the hashtag KnowYourVote and let us know any thoughts and questions that you have. And tonight we actually do have a Snapchat filter as well. So if you'd like to use that at some point, please do. But we're first going to jump right in with the activities officers. So starting from this side, can we please get a brief introduction and opening statement?
Hi, I'm Tom Brindley. I'm a fourth year molecular biology student. I'm running for activities officer, quite clearly. I think I'm good for the role. I have adequate experience and I'm involved in a bunch of different things around the university. So yeah, I think that's about it really. Just opening statements.
Hi, so I'm Emma Lord. I'm a third year philosophy student. I've got good experience too. I'm currently president of SUPAS, so I feel like that gives me good experience throughout the union. My three main policies that I'm trying to push through at the moment is I want to offer mental health training to committees to help support their societies, move all room bookings online and create storage space for societies which is safe, secure and flexible. So yeah, Emma Lord.
Hi, my name's Niall Johnson. I'm a third year politics student. I'm the social secretary for Sheffield Sabercat Stunt Cheerleading. I'm also a member of the Events Management Society. My main policies are campaigning for a society varsity, more storage space for equipment, increased participation grant awareness, more recruitment events throughout the year, and finally an end to weekend room hire fees.
Hi, I'm Fred Gill. I'm a computer science student. I want to make it easier for students to get involved in activities and sports, reward you for engaging, and then finally offer more support for committees. And I think I've got loads of experience, both from a society stance and then from a committee stance as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela Rego. I'm a third year law and criminology student and I want to be your next activities officer because I have a lot of experience in activities and in volunteering in the university. And I believe my manifesto is affordable and is doable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. So much like last night, we're going to kick off with a bit of a question to ease you in. So, in very few words, if you were any confectionery, what would you be and why? We'll start on this side. Any confectionery, really quickly.
Oh, I know. Okay. I'd be that, dairy milk Oreo. That counts, right? As confectionery.
That counts, that
Dairy
counts.
milk Oreo, 100%, 110. That stuff's great.
Emma?
I think Kinder Bueno is just my favourite chocolate ever.
I'm not going to lie, Kinder Bueno is
It's
quite
top-notch, isn't it? Top-notch confectionery.
I'd say a celebration because I'm very diverse. There's many different sides to me.
Good one.
I'm going to have to go for Haribo. There is something for everyone. And and it's tasty.
I will be a McFlurry, to be honest.
Controversial.
Cold.
So we're going to kickstart with what is your most important manifesto policy? Daniela, if you'd like to take us away.
I think my most important manifesto policy will be to increase societies to grow, to help them grow. And by this, I mean helping them with entrepreneurship skills courses. I've been talking to the enterprise of the university, and if all the societies get a little bit of this knowledge, we can help them grow and financially get better.
Okay, thank you. And Fred?
I think for me, it's, as I said on Monday, making sure that all societies feel like they're equal and respected in the union and university. I've had societies in the past come up to me saying they were trying to book a room and the university went, no, you're not a real society, even though they were. So basically making sure that everyone feels like they are actually respected by everybody.
And Niall?
My most prominent policy, I'd say, is trying to introduce a society varsity, like try and give a competitive edge to societies. But my most important, I'd say, is probably increasing participation grant awareness, because not many people realise that you can actually get funding to join a society, and it's probably encourage more membership.
I think one of my most important manifesto points is offering the mental health training to committees, because I think societies are used a lot as a support for all their members. And I think if we offer training to committees so they are aware of the support available within the union, or possibly to be able to spot warning signs of people that are struggling, I think that would really, really help, and it would help support our committees and our members that we've got.
Yeah, while mental health is also...
Tom, I think we're having some issues with your mic.
Can I still hear?
So yeah, I think you'll have to share.
So while mental health was also one of my policy proposals, I think my most prominent one is to do with helping the homeless in Sheffield. I had a meeting, I was speaking to members of the volunteering committee earlier about different ways we could include like more options for volunteering, and one of them was to do with volunteering to help out the homeless. And my one is to open up a soup kitchen within the SU, because I mean, if you walk down West on a Friday night, the amount of homeless people which are there is obscene, and I think whatever we can do as students to help that situation is great. So I think working with charities such as Cathedral Archer Project within Sheffield City, and different societies or volunteering groups within the RSU, we could open up a soup kitchen which provides food and nourishment for these homeless people, and yeah, we could basically just help them. Yeah.
So what do you all think of each other's policies? Have you been keeping up with the campaigning?
I have to say, I do love Tom's policy about helping the homeless. I think that's really good to try and get involved in the communities. I think that should be like a responsibility for all university students to try and get somewhere in the community of Sheffield.
On that, I do have a quick question. How would it be like an activities thing to do rather than like a welfare job, for instance, like?
Oh, okay. So, so obviously the activities role both encompasses activities and volunteering, which is what the role is. So volunteering, I mean, while it might not be considered as an activity, it is 110% a volunteering option. I mean, there's no question about it. And while the welfare officer deals with the welfare of our students, volunteering in terms of the activities officer is wider, and I think it involves the entire University of Sheffield, including the city as well. And I think as students, you spend a minimum of 3 years of our lives at university, 5 if you're a medic, like 7 if you're a PhD student. We should be giving back to our city. There's no question about it. The amount of time we spend here throughout the year, including holidays, like, why should we not give back? And volunteering options the way to do that. So yeah.
I do believe it's really important in terms of helping the homeless, but I believe with volunteering there's a lot of options right now in the university, but students are not involved because mainly they don't know about it. And second, because I've talked to a lot of people and they have part-time jobs and they need to finance and need to pay their rent, and they cannot do all of this stuff in top of academic. So like, how are you planning on trying to balance this and also creating this of helping the homeless?
I mean, so I'm not sure about like what you mean by volunteering options, but like what I mean, I volunteer, and but it's not a everyday thing. I mean, I volunteer once a month with children. Like I'm doing it on Saturday. I'm volunteering with a bunch of children all day from like 10 till 5. We're doing a mini Oscar. It's going to be great. And I have a part-time job. I have a very intensive degree. I'm supposed to be there from 9 to 5 every day doing lab work. I managed to find the time. And like I think it's very easy to find some of your time to donate back to students. I don't think it's a very hard thing to do, to be completely honest.
I think just one thing from me kind of on this is, as much as like helping the homeless is a very honourable cause, there are so many other charities in Sheffield that I feel like we should be kind of trying to support as many of them as we can, instead of just going for one. And like personally, I feel like the best way of doing this is getting societies to actually engage in RAG and getting them engaged with volunteering committee, instead of just having those two groups do it all, try and get everybody else to do their own bit as well.
I mean, my aim was to increase, one of my other policies was to increase volunteering options, which is the reason why I went to go and speak to volunteering committee about this, because I think I asked them, what areas of volunteering do you think we need to increase? What kind of aspects of? There's an awful lot to do with helping volunteering with children and volunteering with the elderly, but not so much with the homeless, which is why I thought that would be a very good way to start, and obviously we can improve that. And my mentioning of Cathedral Archer Project as just one that I already know about, because we raised money for them for Bummit last year when we went to Slovenia. So that was one that I already know about. And obviously society engagement is a key thing. I mean, most societies and most groups, so my MBB society, we have a charity officer and we donate to RAG all the time as well. And obviously, we do that as societies. More wider participation is great and should be encouraged as well. I mean, my policy proposal to do with the homeless in Sheffield and the opening of the soup kitchen was just one that I thought was incredibly good and beneficial and actually needed, because there wasn't one at the moment.
So we're going to move on slightly. How will you make the activities fair more accessible than it is already?
One of my policies actually is in the welcome there is a TV right now, and it just says welcome to Sheffield all day, all the time. If we have it there, the activities of every day, so it's having yoga today, we have chess, these are all the activities of the day. People will know what's actually going on when they get there and be like, okay, now I just get my ticket and go to the activity. Because we have over 300 societies, but sometimes people don't know what's going on. So I think that's one of the ways I will be able to do it.
One of my policies as well, like kind of like Daniela's, is to have more recruitment events throughout the year. So rather than just having the Freshers' Fair and then the Refreshers' Fair, I think we should have more ones, like maybe a new societies fair, maybe like an international societies fair, maybe, you know, more diverse fairs, and then that would attract more people throughout the year rather than just twice a year.
Early in the year, when we were trying to plan for this year's Refreshers' Fair, I was brought into the meeting of kind of how we can make it better. And although it was a bit too late at the time to introduce it, I do have loads of ideas to improve it. So currently Refreshers' Fair is a smaller group of societies going to the Octagon, and not many freshers and first and other students turn up, and it's mainly people going for the pizza, to be honest. And what I'd love to do is actually have that as a full-on society takeover. So we try and get as many societies running events, running Give It a Goes, and running sessions throughout the whole day, so students can actually go around and try things out. It's not as much as people just sitting on stalls, it's where anybody can turn up and take part. And I feel like that way people can actually see what's actually happening in the union, instead of just going, that stall looks all right. They can actually see what's happening.
The only problem I have with that is having everything crammed into one day could be a problem, because what if people want to attend more Give It a Goes and things like that? I think cramming it all into one day is quite an issue, so maybe that's why I'm campaigning for like more events throughout the year.
I think one of my issues to make it more accessible is specifically towards first years. Because I think a lot of the time, first years don't come to the Freshers' Fair or the Refreshers' Fair, or specifically the Freshers' Fair, because it's quite daunting. And like, if you haven't met people that you like necessarily like in your flat or your block, it's quite daunting to walk down to the Octagon and walk into this massive room. You might not know where you're going. And one of my main policies is to actually bring activities to the first years. So set up a smaller activities fair, possibly like 50 or so societies we can put in the student villages, first come, first serve, and it means people, and freshers specifically, who don't feel like they can walk down to the Octagon can just walk into the edge, or like the area around the edge, or the area around the ridge in Ranmore, and it's much more accessible if it's there on their doorstep. And then they're much more likely the next day or the next couple of days to come down and be like, oh, I can do this now because I've seen a few of these societies before.
But what about, say, postgraduate students and mature students who may not necessarily be there?
Can I say something about that?
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think freshers is really important, but we leave behind postgraduates, PhDs, and internationals too. As an international student, sometimes we don't get involved in committees because we don't know the people. So one of my manifesto points for postgraduates is to create a postgraduate positions on the committees. We'd had freshers once, and when freshers see, oh, we're looking for a fresher for UNICEF, freshers get involved. But if we have these 4 postgraduates, we can get more postgraduates involved. Most of the postgraduate students right now in the committees are because they did their undergrad in here, or they know people here, but only postgraduates that come from abroad, they don't get involved in committees.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think it's a really good idea to put like a postgraduate position on a committee. And one of my ideas as well was also to have like a liaison in the union who would like ideally be a postgraduate or a mature student who could run drop-in sessions, and societies and committees themselves could go to that postgraduate liaison in the union and be like, what is it that we are doing wrong, or what is it that we can do more that can allow for postgraduates to, like, so we can understand how they feel, basically.
That could just be postgraduate committee.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they can
completely.
But that currently exists, and it's just about directing them to go to the committee.
Yeah, it's just there's no awareness of it at the moment. Like,
There's also a mature students committee, and like obviously the mature students counsellor is called Valerie, and she's an amazing person. There's currently an incentive to provide leaflets to different societies that provide them with information on who to contact, like in terms of the committee wise, which is they're going to be given out in the next week, I think, is a bunch of leaflets which explain who to go and see if you're a postgraduate or you're a mature student, if you don't understand, because obviously it's quite isolating and obviously loads of people are quite lonely in that kind of demographic. So yeah, there are people there who you can talk to, but I think it's getting it out there that there are these people.
I also think it's getting out there for, like, it's not just that postgraduates should go and find these people. I also think it's for committees to go, what is it that we can do? It shouldn't just be up to postgraduate, mature, international students to go and find these people. Societies and committees should make the effort too, and that's something that I would really, really be lobbying for.
This is why I think there should be like an event, especially for postgraduates to join societies, so maybe sometime throughout the year, rather than just Freshers' Fair, we should have a postgraduate fair of some sort, like to try and get them involved in societies.
Although one way to help outreach for all groups is to improve the online society and make sure that it's actually accessible so that everybody knows how to use it and that all students know where they can go and find societies. Right now on the website, it's a little bit convoluted when you're searching for societies to join.
Anna Berestova did say that one thing that she wanted to do, but she hasn't managed to do yet, was to actually change the SU like society, and in general the entire web page, because it's so kind of disjointed and
I've worked with Tech Dev for a bit on the so I worked with them for a while on the website and making sure societies were easier to use, and it's something that is improving. There was a big update in November for societies to help, but it's just about slowly getting more societies engaged with it. Because right now we have only a small handful actually engaging, and the moment everybody engages and it becomes normal to use the online system, then everybody should be able to understand it better, and then everyone can learn from each other, and online societies will actually be a thing that works and will be a thing that everybody can learn from and grow from.
I think that's a great idea, but in the meantime, we need to get people involved. One of my manifesto points is to promote more of these creative media courses that the university has to offer and no one knows about. I actually did one for Photoshop, and I get to involve it with UNICEF. All the publicity and media grow so much. If we get these courses to committees, they will grow their publicity in the meantime, because we know this project is for 3-4 years, but for next year, something doable will promote these courses so people can actually get involved in social media and recruit people more. Yeah.
So a lot of you talked about inclusivity, obviously, which we've touched on, but a lot of you also talked about societal collaboration within your manifestos. Do you think that this is currently a problem and something that needs solving, and what would you propose if so?
I think it's like currently for large-scale events such as Black History Month or LGBT History Month, there are a lot of collaborative efforts to do with celebrating that. I think when it comes to smaller scale celebrations on cultural days of importance, such as Diwali, stuff like this, there aren't as much. And this is one of my proposals that came with speaking to the BME councillor, Sarah, about. And I asked her, what do you think is a thing that is lacking within the societies? And she and me and her decided that these celebrations and these inter-society group events are lacking. And I think if we do more of these and we get more societies and groups talking, collaborating, and just having fun and celebrating an event, then we can add and increase this idea that we are a kind of cohesive SU and that we're all in this kind of journey together. I think it's quite important that we do this.
And this is why I want to introduce a society varsity, because I think, like, you can all see with sports varsity how this brings all sports clubs together into like kind of unit, like everyone's together, like competing for one cause. I think a society varsity is really bring competitive societies together.
We've done a society varsity before, and we did a performance varsity specifically with like SUPAS, and I think Sutco was involved a little bit as well. And it was taken over last year by activities in the zone, and then this year it hasn't happened. Is it happening now? Okay, it's happening now.
Currently been contacting societies to get them engaged. I know two of my societies are taking part in Society Varsity this year.
All I know is we have like darts here and things like that, and we also have like various like Pokemon battles, poker society, things like that. And like all we need to do is just get them all together, maybe in like over the space of 2 weeks, so there really is like
it's happening in a 2-week thing. I believe it's after the sports varsity. We're going to be having Society Varsity.
The only thing I see with collaboration is right now we're not thinking about small societies. For example, I'm the president for UNICEF. How will we do a varsity UNICEF? Like, there's no way to do that. However, in collaboration, it's been really hard to collaborate with other societies because sometimes societies don't look at their email. And it's so hard to organize with the president. We want to do something with yoga, and I had to contact them through Facebook to find these presidents, like, I want to do something with you guys, help us out. One of my manifesto points that is really easy to do is just get the president's Facebook and organize them in one. It will be managed by the activities officers, and then I will be looking, I want to do an event with yoga, who's the president, can you please help us out?
Or kind of things that already exist to support that. There are the current liaison groups that different societies are invited to at the start of each year, so that all political campaigning societies go over in one group, all creative societies are in another group, and it's just a way for them to communicate to each other. As well as this, something that I've helped champion in Societies Committee is we ran collaboration speed dating. So we invited societies down, and they could come round and just go around and spend a minute or 2 minutes talking to different societies about how they can work together and different ways that they can kind of share with each other. And I think this is a great thing that I'd love to actually bring as a full-on event throughout the year, so that societies can engage with societies they may have never even heard of before.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I think that is all that we have time for. I think my earpiece has failed, and I'm not currently sure how much time we have left, but I've been given a little note. So if we can have a really quick roundup of your policies and why people should vote for you. Thank you.
Starting with me?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, I have 5 main policy proposals that are all online, but I'll tell you about 3 of them, which I think I've already mentioned actually. But they're my 3, I think, most important. And the first one, same as Emma, is mandatory mental health training to committee members, because I think as students who spend 3 years of our lives at university, it's important that our mental health and well-being are looked after. Another one is to do with inter-society events, which we've just spoken about. And then the third one is obviously to liaise with groups such as Cathedral Archer Project to open up a soup kitchen here for the homeless. So yeah, they're my 3 main prerogatives really.
Yeah. So my main policies as well is obviously taking mental health training to societies and committees, moving all room bookings online, because I think that's an incredible inconvenience for lots of committees, as I think most people here will probably know. And it's also creating flexible, safe and secure storage space. I'd also like to take activities to the first years and also create and get better with postgraduate inclusions.
So I've kind of mentioned most of my policies already during this debate, but one I haven't really touched upon is increased participation grant awareness. Right now, there's £42,000 saved away by universities, especially for participation grants, but each one is limited to £200 per student. So I'd like to maybe raise that or just increase awareness of what it is.
Okay, really, really quickly, please.
I want to make it easier for students to get involved in societies from first years all the way up to PhDs. I want to reward you for engaging, whether this be peer recognition for actually taking part in societies, not just being on committees, to improving rewards throughout the year. And then finally, I want to give more support for committees throughout the year. So streamlining room bookings, both union and university, and then making sure that all societies feel equal and respected within the Students' Union and university.
My manifesto is accessible and it's really easy to do. I want to make societies grow and I want to make them accessible. So who needs an umbrella with Daniela, guys?
And we're going to pass straight back over to studio. So a big round of applause, please, here.
Hello, yes, so that was the Activities Officers Debates, and I'm Nick Cassidy, and for the next 7 minutes or so, we're going to give you some excellent punditry with our pundits. So we've got David Schofield, we've got David Craig, and we've got Will Moran. Hello and welcome. Okay, so what did you think of that debate? Starting off with David Schofield.
I thought there was a lot. There were a couple of people that didn't get as much time as they perhaps would have wanted to in the debate. I think Emma in particular didn't get as much time to talk as perhaps say Fred and Tom and Niall. There were a lot of the same sort of points bouncing around, which are on a lot of the different manifestos. Some of them tend to be more sort of pinpointed than others. like society varsity was mentioned a lot, and there was a lot of disagreement between them about whether these things are already being done, whether they're in the works and things like that. And there was mention of Anna Berestova of last year as well. And
yes, I'll come on to that later.
Yeah.
But first of all, David, Craig, how did you think that went?
I think there was definitely more interaction between the candidates than there were in the debate that I watched last night. Particularly at the beginning when there was kind of a bit of a pile-on Tom and his soup kitchen idea. Everyone was kind of throwing in their 2 cents about whether or not that was a good idea. So I think it's great to see, though, that people are looking at their competition and kind of analysing the other ideas.
Yeah, and Will?
Yeah, good to see a bit of a debate going there. Like you say, a lot of the similar points coming up about storage space. Possibly wanted to know a little bit more about like the specifics of that, where they were going to sort of introduce that around campus. I like the idea of, I know a couple of the candidates mentioned it then, the idea of having a freshers' fair in the halls of residence.
Yeah, so that's one big thing we need to talk about is the idea of getting people involved in activities. Widening participation is one thing that a lot of them did say. So what did you think of the idea of making Refreshers Fair bigger and better and not all in one day? Starting off with Will.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I mean, if you think about what happens in the Octagon now, there's over 300 societies, and especially first years, they might feel maybe a bit intimidated, so it might be a good idea to expand what happens up at Endcliffe and Ranmore now, get a few more societies up there.
And is there anything you feel that you think that should happen? That what should happen to make Refreshers Fair better? Like, what do you think should happen?
Just getting more and more societies up there as well. And I like the idea of having maybe in Freshers Week a lot more give it a go and trial sessions for different societies and stuff. Because I think if people can experience what the different societies are doing, they might have more of an incentive to join up.
Yeah, and David Schofield?
I quite like the idea of splitting it down that was mentioned by one of the candidates, where they'd split it into national societies and we've already got the sports fair and the activities fair, but split down more within activities itself to the more volunteering side, to, the national side, and people that might want to join their own home country society, and the societies that are more involved in activities in a way. I thought that was a good idea.
And then one thing I want to go over to David Craig is another big point is where you mentioned earlier with the idea of Anna Berestova hasn't done quite as well in terms of improving digital side of the activities online. What do you think of, David, you're a fresher, so what do you think of the digital online aspect of the activities area?
Well, I haven't had huge interaction with it since Freshers Week, but I do remember because I did miss some of the welcome events and the give it a goes and things, and I was like, well, maybe I can find something online about it. And it is a bit tricky finding exactly okay, where do these people meet, how often, the information and the events aren't very easy to connect
But it's
with.
interesting to say that they've got a year to improve a lot of stuff, and do you think that they'll be able to do it? Would they be able to change online? Because they've been saying it for the last few years now, that they're going to change online, make it better than ever, and they haven't done it. So what do you think, any of these candidates do you think can do it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how difficult it is to change that kind of technical stuff, because I'm not super technically minded, but I feel like a couple of the candidates maybe seem like they have a more specific idea than others.
Yeah.
Don't want to name any names, but I think it's possible. But again, as you say, you've been here longer than me. If people have been saying it for several years and it's not getting done, then I imagine there's a reason for that.
Okay, and also moving on to the idea of collab, bringing societies together. So David, do you feel that that's something that needs to improve? Do these candidates really need to put that in the manifesto?
I think that's really up to the societies themselves. Some societies will feel they need to have a little bit more collaboration. Some will feel that what they've got is enough because, maybe the reason Yoga Society weren't replying is because they felt the need, not to have a combination with UNICEF, or perhaps it was something they felt was a different goal, shall we say, to what they had intended from their year. So it's more about gauging a way of being able to have this potential of collaboration without forcing it upon those that don't wish to have it put upon them.
Okay, and so we're going to go on to the biggest thing of all, that society's varsity. So it's been said for a while now that they want to have sort of an idea of, a bit similar to varsity, but have activities involved. Do you think that would work?
It's an interesting point. Like they said, the candidates there said about the performance varsity that happened. I think logistically, it's quite difficult because, like we say, over 300 different societies. So whether or not how it would be done is possibly what they could have expanded on a little bit more.
Okay. And final thoughts. Who do you think came on top? Starting off with David, very briefly.
I thought Fred covered the points particularly well. He reflected questions back really well. He answered concisely and with purpose compared to a lot of the sort of rambling that came from a couple of other candidates.
Okay, and David?
I think I would have to second that. I did think Fred came off very well. Not only did he seem like he knew his stuff, but also he came across like quite a likable candidate as well and approachable.
Okay, and finally Will.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I think for me it was Emma and David for the top two candidates that stood out for me personally. A lot of ideas about improving inclusivity in societies and collaboration as well. So.
Brilliant. Okay, so that was our activities officer analyst there, and we're heading over now to Alex, where we've got the international student officers.
Okay, welcome back. We're here with the international officer candidates. So we're going to do the same and get a brief introductory statement, starting on this side with Chibuki, please.
Hello, my name is Chibuki. You simply call me Cheesy, and I'm running for International Students Officer. And my campaign slogan is Cheesy for Greatness. And yeah, I would like to serve international students and everyone. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Santana, and I'm the chair of the International Students Committee. And for the past 4 years I've been here, I have been so passionate about defending international students' rights. And so, yeah, and I think I'm the best person to be the International Students Officer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Goodleaf. I studied politics and international relations. So one of the reasons I want to be part of this is because I'm an international student and I also study international relations. I know the relationship between countries and the relationship what is happening in the UK, what is happening here in Sheffield, and what is happening abroad. And basically, I also take part in societies like I was inclusion officer for Nigerian Society, and I was also I used to be student ambassador for Sheffield Student Union on open days. So that's just it.
Okay, so we're going to kickstart. If you were any Sheffield location, where would you be and why? Whether it's a building, a shop, a restaurant, anywhere, where would you be and why?
Well, the Diamond. Well,
why'd you pick the Diamond?
Yeah, I'm an engineering student, so I spend half of my life there, and it has really flexible reading spaces. It's quite warm, at times warmer than your flat. So yeah, I'll pick the Diamond.
Right, mine would be Tampa's Sellers Wheel, because they've got the best Eggs Benedict, and they've got the best coffee, and I think it definitely explains Sheffield. Sheffield's edgy, Sheffield's different, and so yeah.
Mine will be West Street. I call it the heart of the city because it's basically busy. There are shops and there are clubs where you can buy things and where you can do your shopping and relax and chill with friends. Take your girlfriend and boyfriend on a date. Yeah.
So as international students, you've obviously picked Sheffield over a lot of other places in the UK, but we want to know why Sheffield in particular. What drew you to it?
Okay. Firstly, it was the reputation. You know, Sheffield is a Russell Group university, and it's top class. Then I came over here during the open day, and the views were amazing. The view from the to the Peak District, it had nice aesthetic views, and you know, it was the scenery attracted me, which was in comparison to other universities. Yeah, that's why I chose Sheffield.
I think I chose Sheffield. Well, I know I chose Sheffield because it has the biggest international community. I had friends over here before I moved to Sheffield, and I thought, why, like, I tried applying to different places. I applied to Oxford Brookes, I applied to Exeter, and everyone just told me, go to Sheffield, because Sheffield has the best international community. They've got one of the best courses in economics and politics, which is why I studied, and they've got really good provisions for mental health, and the economics department is really, really good with mental health. And as a person with a mental health disability, it just drawn me right away.
And Daniel?
To be honest with you, I didn't have an option of choosing Sheffield because I'm a sponsored student from Nigeria, so the choice was made for me. So, but I know Sheffield was a top-class university because they picked the top-class university in the US and in UK and other countries. So they wanted to take me to US, but later they found out that they already paid for exam for me in UK, so I have to do the exam and come to Sheffield. So some went to Manchester, some went to Sheffield, and all over UK top universities. So, but when I came here, I found out this place was very good. The societies, the activities, and the teaching all was top class and top level. Yeah.
So obviously, with the Brexit vote last year, there are going to be a lot of changes for European students. But how exactly do you plan to support these European students with the change?
Well, to be very honest, I don't have a precise plan because there's lots of uncertainty in the air. The policies, Article 50 has just been triggered. The policies are not yet out there, and it's not yet clear to the people. But what I plan to do is provide support by collaborating with the Student Advice Center and the educational officer to sit down and see how we can make this thing easy on the EU students, because it's a change from being home to being regarded as international. So try and see how we can best, provide them the information they need, provide them the assistance where necessary, so that it's easy on them. Thank you.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What are you going to do to help the European students in the wake of Brexit?
Well, it was written in my manifesto. First of all, if Brexit happens, obviously where Brexit is going to happen, we just don't know when, Erasmus and study abroad programs are going to be affected. And obviously, it is going to affect home students the most. Let's face it, home students are the ones taking a year off on Erasmus and a year off on study abroad. International students are already doing their years abroad. So it's obviously going to affect them more, but the only way I can think of is getting the students' union to work with the NUS and to lobby the university, lobby the government to make sure that they are a key role player in the Brexit negotiations. If you don't negotiate with education, it's pointless.
But if you think about it, the government aren't really even listening to the Lords. How are we going to get them to listen to Sheffield SU?
It's not only Sheffield SU that's going to be affected. It's going to be all universities are going to be affected. All universities, Erasmus, study abroad is going to be affected. And if the university wants to lose more people to do degrees, obviously you're going to lose money. So
I mean, it's not just about Erasmus and study abroad students. What about European students who are looking to come to the UK for their full 3 years and not just a year abroad?
Well, I don't think if EU students do want to come to the UK to study, I don't think the fact that Brexit is going to stop them. They just have to get a student visa. It's just that it's going to be difficult for them to get funding. That is the main issue.
So do you have any ideas of how you're going to support those students?
Well, the university has to speak to Student Finance England, don't they? I think that is one thing that they should do. They have to talk to the Student Finance England and see how. I'm not sure who finances the EU student, because from what I know, it's the EU that funds EU students. So I think they should have a deal. There's a deal that should be cut for that.
And what do you think about this, Daniel? Have you got any opinions on Brexit?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say the good news to everybody, because the House of Lords actually defeated the government, and by voting against the bill saying government should make EU people that are living in UK stay in UK. So that means the government and the Commons have to revote. But what I was saying, what I was thinking is that the university should try and follow everything and communicate with us, because right now we can't have any policy. Even the government too, there's uncertainty in the air. They don't even have any clear policy right now, because even the bill has a lot of controversies and debate. So the government the university have to follow the informations and communicate with us and tell us if the EU students are going to be treated like international students, or they are going to be given home student privileges as they are be enjoying, or there are going to be some certain changes. Right now, we don't know, so we can't really have a policy when we don't know what the government are even about to do.
So you think it's something that you'll have to develop while you're in office if you get elected?
Yeah, I think it's something we have to develop at cost of time, as time goes on.
And everyone has said on their manifestos that they want to promote international students' rights in some way. But what sort of rights are you looking to increase or enhance? Anyone? I'll throw that open to.
The first one that I want to talk about is the industry fees. That a student should not have to pay more if they want to do a year in industry. We are paying students, international students pay about 21% of their fees on the year abroad, which means it comes up to 6,000 for a first-year engineering student to pay, because now for engineering students pay about £20,000 for the tuition fees, whereas home students only pay £1,100, which is really unfair, which means it makes it easier for home students to get employability skills, or they become more employable, but it's more difficult for international students. We come here to get a wholesome degree, to get good experience, so we can go back and, work hard and, settle down and everything. But why are we deprived to a year of experience by charging more fees? It doesn't make sense to me.
So you'd focus mainly on the fees for industry, year in industry?
Fees for year in industry, fees for placement year. Anyone can do a placement year anyway with a sandwich year. So, yeah.
And Spooky, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I would say we should get more value for the money we pay. I wouldn't say, or I'm going to say reduce the fees, because I don't know how these fees, how they come about with the pricing. But I would say for what we pay quite a huge sum, and we contribute to the UK economy. Hence, we should be able to get more value than what we're getting. We should be able to get free printing. We should be able to get recorded lectures, meaning video and not just audio.
Free printing is never going to happen.
I mean,
Recorded lectures will happen, and that's something that I know because a lot of in the politics department is already implementing it. The economics department is about to implement it. There's a lot of other departments who are already working through it. But free printing will never happen, and let's just face that.
Well, you can limit, you can give them 500 free pages every semester. It doesn't have to be unlimited.
You know what? Because the library spends so much money on our journals and articles and takes so much for licensing, and they get their money from printing. They get their money from those things. If we take that off the library services, the library would not have enough money to license journals for us to get for free, for us to view for free. And as a politics student and an economics student, journals and articles are my life. I won't get any other information from anywhere else.
But you're saying the library wouldn't have enough money, but we're paying fees.
We're paying fees, but we're not paying fees only for the library, are we? We're paying fees for lecturers. Lecturers pay. And that takes a huge chunk because lecturers don't demand even small pay. They demand higher pay. Look at our Vice-Chancellor. He earns $450,000 a year.
Sky rich.
And if I come in, why free printing is not advisable? Because if the recycle system, when you the university have to make sure they follow the recycle system, and when the money is there, it can't make you rethink. Oh, should I print this page and read it and read the stuff like on paper, or should I just read online? Because if I if I read it online with my computer, I won't be wasting money. But if I print out pages, I'll be wasting money. So it makes more limit papers like registration paper and recycling easy and everything. So I think it's not advisable for free printing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the original question, what do you propose to do for the rights of international students?
For me, I want the right for international students to be able to work if they choose to stay in UK, to be able to work, because we, apart from all the things we have been hearing on social media and Trump will be advocating, most of international immigration does not totally contribute too much harm, like the way people are claiming, like the way the media, the government, especially the US government, is claiming. And immigration as well contribute positively to the economy. So what one of my main policies is to advocate for the government to make sure they bring back post-study work visa, something like that, so that international students can work after they finish. Yeah.
And how do you think you do that?
Well, we have to campaign and lobby the student union and the government and the MPs. Yeah, well, it has been going on.
And guess
Rome,
what? Theresa
Rome
May is
was
not
not
gonna
built
change
in a
this
day.
shit.
Rome was not built in a day. It's a continuous
So
campaign.
what do you hope to
if
do
we don't
differently?
benefit it, if our set don't benefit it, other set will benefit it. It's a continuous fight. It's not a one-day battle to finish.
How do you hope to fight differently? What are you going to do differently this time that people have not done in the past to return this post-study visa?
Well, we'll keep. I'm going to write letters to MPs. I'm going
We
to
have
find out
done
about Sheffield MPs, write letter to them, and also write letter to the student union. And in fact, we should even go as far as organizing protests, because we can go as far as organizing protests. Most of the people here, students, don't even know who their vice chancellor is. We should go to his office and
He's never there. He's probably flying somewhere else.
and march and make sure, if they hear our voice, we keep protesting and lobbying them and writing them letters and all.
So both of you don't seem to think that Daniel's point is feasible, but are any of your manifesto points feasible at all?
Well, first of all, yes.
Didn't mean to sound that harsh.
No, it's all right. I mean, it's a good thing when someone wants to keep you accountable, and you did the right thing. And yes, I think getting the university to lobby to reduce the yearly placement fees is feasible. Where did they get the 21% number from? I want to know that. I tried finding their website. Where did it come from? If they say it's because of inflation, it doesn't make any sense. If Anna can get a guarantor scheme for the university, if she can launch that, and if Peggy can get 3 Gaza scholarships, up to 5 done, I can definitely do it too.
Yes, I think my policies are feasible. I think, for example, to strengthen the voice of the international students, postgraduate and mature international students, it's all about going out there and encouraging them to come out, encouraging them to speak up. So it doesn't consume any huge financial or time resource. And also sustaining the international campaign. It's already in existence. I just plan to keep it and grow it. So a lot of my policies are already built on what is existing. Hence, I think at the end of my tenure, I should be held accountable for all my policies.
Are you aware that we don't own the We Are International campaign?
Yeah.
The Students' Union does not own it?
The ISC owns it.
No,
Oh,
we
really?
don't. This University of Sheffield owns it.
Come
The
on.
Students' Union actually started it. Fadi in 2012 started it. And we gave it to the University of Sheffield because they had more money to make it nationwide. We don't own it anymore. ISC does not own it, and I know this because I'm chair.
Oh, that's fair enough.
And we only advocate. Sorry, we only use them. We only use their adverts is because they sponsored us for World Week.
Yeah.
And they were a huge part for World Week, and they are still a huge part for International Cultural Evening, and they'll still be a huge part for World Food Festival.
Okay,
If I'm to come in, even if the university owns the advert is not making any difference. Look at the surrounding, look at the faces you see here. Are you seeing any Middle East person? How many Middle East people can you see here? Are you seeing Asian people? Where are they? Where are the African people?
I'm sorry, she's right there.
Yeah,
We have,
but that's one compared to how many white people you are seeing here, how many Europeans and how many
You
British
want
people.
to
So
label people
more
through those
No,
things. It's not right.
I'm not labeling people. What I'm saying is the campaign is not
As
doing
an
anything.
international student officer,
The
you should
campaign have
promote
not made any
integration, not
much
promote
difference.
segregation.
The campaign have not made any difference, whether the unit is
Yes.
championing it or the
Right.
student union
I agree
is championing
to a
it.
certain point. It has made a difference in terms of showing that we have an international community. And guess what? That is the most important thing. But I do agree that they have been viewed more as a recruitment tool instead of a moral campaign. That I do agree. But that is what we all aim to change when we become officer.
We are talking about getting involved in student union. We are not talking about recruitment. The university is doing it for their own financial benefit of recruiting international
But
students.
guess what?
We are talking
we
about
can use it
we are
for our
talking
own
about
advantage
people
too.
getting involved. We are talking about them, the international student and everybody postgraduate getting involved in the uni activities, in student union. We are not talking about university having access to recruit international students. That does not really benefit us. It benefits the uni. Yeah. So
Well,
there's a
if they
difference.
don't recruit international students, who are we supposed to represent? When all the international students run out.
We are representing international students, but there's no way all the students will run out. That point is not very strong. There's no way our international students will run out.
To be honest, I don't think the population of people here is a benchmark to measure the involvement of international students in university. It was a choice thing. If you wanted to come, it's open to all. So it's not a benchmark. It's not suitable.
So let me first ask you, how many, forgive me if this is going to kind of stereotypical or something like that. How many Middle East people or Asian people did you speak to? When you talk to them, the language barrier, they will tell you, oh, they don't know about it, they are not hearing, oh, we can't understand you. I was talking with someone yesterday, and he told me, oh, he can't understand me, so I have to keep explaining, and I have to take time. So most of the information you are passing across, and you think people are hearing it, they are not even going to those people. Those people are so far away from the union. So
part of my policy is to educate people on stereotyping. And there's the ELTC, where's the Language Assist Center in Sheffield. So if you promote the existence of the ELTC, if you think there's a language problem, then I think it will be solved. You just need to raise the awareness. We know it's a bit away from campus, but the people you spoke to, if you think they have a language problem, did you recommend the opportunities available in campus?
I think he wanted the vote. He wouldn't have told you English is bad, go back to...
Yeah, decent. But yeah, so I don't know.
Well, you can't really say that, can you? I mean, if someone doesn't know how to speak English, you shouldn't discriminate them just because they don't know how to speak English.
I'm not discriminating. You're not getting my point. You're not getting my point. My point is that those kind of people need to be, like the union need to do something, the student union need to do something to access those people to get more involved. Like when we talk about integration, we are talking about every problem that affects integration. So you have to consider all the variables. It's not just saying, oh, I'll reach out to social people. How will you do that? You have to consider, you have to deep thought to consider what affect those people. Where are those people not getting involved? Okay, let me say this, for example. International students, when we come here most of the time, we pass through colleges, and now the colleges are not involved. Sheffield International College is not involved in voting. I asked the election officials, and they say they are not involved in voting. Why? By now, we should integrate them too, so that they will know through the process, and they'll be aspiring to be like us or to do something to contribute to the union. That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to say language, people are not speaking good English or something like that. No, I'm trying to say consider the variables before you bring out your policy so that you can integrate everybody together.
So after an interesting conversation, I'm afraid we only have time for some closing statements. So if you could all be really brief, sum up your policy and why you think people should vote for you.
Well, my 3 policies are to sustain, strengthen, and support. So sustain the international campaign, strengthen the voice of the mature and postgraduate international students. I feel they're not being involved enough in university activities, and support the EU students. Thank you.
My main policies are reduce placement fees for international students, have a quiet room in the SU for students to medicate, recollect, and just simply who want some quiet, and shine with Santana.
My 3 main policies are promote integration between international student and home student and EU student too, between postgraduate and international college. And also, I want to make it easy for international committees to get easy access to university financial support. And also, I want to I'll forget my last one, but I'll come back to that.
That's fine. Thank you very much to our international officer candidates. We're going to pass over back to studio now for some punditry. And can we have a round of applause, please? Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to the punditry of Forge Debates. You are joined by me, Emily, and we just saw the interviews for international officer. I'm joined by Nicole, Louise and Matthew. How are you doing, guys?
Good. Doing well.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Your first thoughts on the debate, please.
It was quite an interesting debate. It got a little bit heated in some of the rounds, didn't it? Went a bit off topic at times, I thought. I didn't really think the printing comments were necessary. also, I felt that some of them didn't really understand what the systems were post-Brexit. So I think Santana made a point about talking to Student Finance England, whereas European students don't get their finance from Student Finance England. They get it from their home countries. So that'd be something they need to discuss with their home countries. But otherwise, I thought they did make some good points.
I thought the points were good. They hit the right topics, like the rights for international students, but they didn't really say how they were going to go about that. A lot of talk of lobbying, things like that, but no like specific policies to actually ensure that the rights for international students are met.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Also, I'd raise the point about the language barrier that was brought up, because that seemed to be quite murky territory that they got themselves into with that one. And then also, I thought Daniel's point about the Brexit negotiations, that we can't make any kind of clear policy until we know what's actually happening.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they just put Brexit in their manifesto because that's what the key issue is in like the British news at the moment, but they don't really. No one really understands what's going on. It's like a really complicated process. So I think if you're going to talk, like put it in your manifesto, you really need to do your research.
They need to know about,
and they need to know about it.
Yeah.
Like they can't say random things.
It seems like a bit of a ploy to get votes at times.
It's definitely a point to get votes, but you know we don't know if European students' fees are going to rise or not post Brexit, so you can't, you know,
promise big
promise. We don't know the implications yet.
So, on sort of the topic of Brexit, I mean, obviously it's something that we probably expected to come up because it's going to have a big impact, especially on people at university. Was there anyone that sort of stood out to you guys on their policies? Exactly how are they going to support European students with the impact of Brexit? Or is there anything that you think they could have said?
I think it was really unclear. I didn't get anything concrete from it. You know, they said we're going to support them with their rights here. We're going to support the EU students with respect to life post-Brexit. But I, coming away from the debate, I know no more about their plans than that was actually in their manifestos, really.
I know Daniel and Chibuki said that they don't have a plan because there is this kind of air of uncertainty. And Santana kind of went on a tangent about home students being more affected, which I don't know how that really fits into international officer.
I think before we even had the European Union, there was some sort of Erasmus program. So I think for you to... you can't say that the Erasmus program might not be there. There might be less funding, but it doesn't mean the exchanges won't be there. So it
was all very
unclear. I
unclear.
think it was just a bit muddled because they haven't done their research.
Yeah. So another thing which came up a little bit in the discussion was the fees and how that might rise. And, you know, it's already hard for international students anyway. They sort of covered a bit on how they're going to tackle the fee rise. Was there anything there that stuck out to you?
Santana's point about the reducing fees for placement, because I think she did have a good point where it's harder for international students to get a placement and then get kind of more experience when they go out and get a job. But again, there wasn't really any talk of how that's going to be done other than lobbying the university or lobbying the government.
And what do you think about the idea of lobbying the university for that?
You know, I think it's quite a difficult, you know, tangent to go on. I think people have tried it in the past before and they failed because it's not just Sheffield University, it's like across the country kind of problem.
It's quite a vague solution as well.
It's quite a vague, I'm going to lobby, but people have been lobbying for years, but they just increased the fees, didn't they?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's something which comes up in every candidate's speeches and every candidate's policies and manifestos. Year on year, we haven't seen very much progress. We've seen a bit of progress with the TEF campaign, like that's actually gotten onto the radar and that kind of thing. So I think if they were going to suggest a campaign or suggest lobbying, it has to be watertight. They have to know some sort of substance of what they're going to do before. When they're telling people how how are you going to lobby, how are you going to put this across to the government and pressure them.
I think that's what can be quite frustrating about perhaps that debate in particular, is that there didn't seem to be very concrete plans put in place about how they're going to implement the changes they want. So another thing that we should probably discuss is the rights of international students. The role of the international officer is obviously to make international students feel integrated. Do you feel particularly confident in one candidate, or?
Again, I don't really think they touched on the specific rights. They didn't target any particular campaigns or students. They just kind of had a blanket answer.
Yeah.
There did seem to be two small key points that were raised, which was the Tier 1 visas that I think Daniel was trying to secure. So staying in the UK for 1 year after graduation, getting a visa for that. And also lobbying the Vice-Chancellor for international students, I think.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, in principle, that sounds pretty good, actually.
Because
Because it's not... You're not lobbying the government, you're trying to improve what is already running, and it is already there. You're just trying to make that role better and more professional, really. So I think that's achievable, actually. I'd support that.
Yeah, I thought Daniel's point on them getting better value for money, I think that's a home student thing as well, actually. I think all university students want to get better value for money in their degree, and they want to see what they're paying for, and they want to get good experience. So I thought that was a good point, actually.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicole, and Louise and Matthew, for your very insightful punditry. It was an interesting international debate. Lots more to be said, but I'm sure we can discuss another time.
We'll discuss backstage.
Next up, we have the sports officer debate, which is highly contested. So we're going to throw back over to Alex. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fusion. We are here with the sports candidates. So very much like before, we're going to get a brief opening statement, and then we'll jump straight into the questions. So if we could go from this side, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, my name is Katie. I'm running for sports officer because I've come from a background of doing no sport at all. And I've progressed my way up, and I'm now playing for the first team on the lacrosse committee and running the social sports sessions. So I feel like I do a good job of representing everybody at a sport level.
I'm Jake. I'm running to be your sports officer because I believe sport should be affordable, diverse and enjoyable for all students at university. I got involved in my first year as a social sport leader, and from that created the University Dodgeball Club. So I feel I have a unique experience that I can use to help others. So, yeah.
Hi, my name's Millie. I'm running to be sports officer because before I came to university, I played a few different sports, but when I came to uni, I tried the sport that I played beforehand, and I was just too shy to stick at it. So I joined cricket because I had a friend there, and through cricket, I've just become much more confident. I mean, if you met me now, you wouldn't believe I was shy before, but I promise you I was. So I want people to have the same journey through sport that I had, for it to develop people as people, and just for them to enjoy themselves.
I'm Flo, I'm third year history and philosophy student. I'm running to be sports officer because I want to make sport in Sheffield grow. I think that's going to be done through increasing inclusivity and communication. I'm president of the Snowboard Club, and being part of that has made my university experience, and I just want to encourage others to get stuck in as I have to make their uni the best it can be.
Hi, my name's Jasmine, and I'm running for sports officer. Is this supposed to be like a really loud echo with this? Because it sounds weird.
Oh, no, it sounds fine at the moment.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm running for sports officer because when I was younger, I was always told that I couldn't do sports because of health problems, or I couldn't do sports because there wasn't the time or the money, and I don't want anyone else to feel like that's something they have to worry about when they get to university, because there are so many clubs out there that can take sort of like people who have disabilities, can take people who can only give a minimal commitment, or people who have very little in the way of funds.
So quite a pressing question to begin on. If you could be any VK flavour, what would you be and why? Very brief, please.
I would be the yellow one because it's black and gold.
I'll be the blue one because it's not actually a flavour, but I just like it.
I'd go for the red one because you get it in a glass bottle, so I feel like that's just a step up from the rest.
I'm going to be diplomatic and go for a combo of them all because why just have one VK?
I honestly have no idea what that means.
Fantastic. Oh, and Jake, just before we begin, we've been hearing rumours from Forge members that you've been going into lectures and saying that you're going to provide lots of new, nice filming equipment for clubs and then hand it all over to Forge and get them to edit it. Is this the case?
Well, so the plan is basically Sport Sheffield, run so many events, and we want more competitions, fixtures, and so on filmed. Forge does a great coverage, but obviously they can't be at all away games, for example, or all fixtures at home. I think if clubs can, hire out a GoPro for free, trade in your U card, something similar like that, and then Forge could help them if they were so willing as part of their coverage. Because they are trying to cover as many sports as possible, as they say. Just put together highlights clips or help with editing or things like that. I always think a lot of clubs do have people who are quite technically able as well, who might be able to share that and do that themselves. But I think it's really important to get publicity out there for all clubs with what they're doing, and also to use it for performance analysis as well.
Have you talked to anyone at Forge about this?
So I run all my policy through Sport Sheffield to see, first of all, if these are...
So not Forge?
No, not so as far as the editing goes, obviously, I would think Forge would want to help, obviously, but equally, the practicality of getting those through Sport Sheffield is the priority, so they can be
I do think that it's worth pointing out, we already take cameras to all our away games. You can hire out GoPros from the Diamond in a similar way. You just take your U card, you book it out for a few days, and you take it back. And there are quite a few GoPros that you can take out. There's HD video recording and DSLR cameras. I know a lot of clubs do it. Rugby League film all their fixtures themselves already through equipment they have themselves or through equipment you can get from the Diamond. And I know Sport Sheffield are already looking into putting performance analysis cameras, potentially in Goodwin, but definitely up at Norton, because we've been consulted about that and we're just in the process of asking them what the deal would entail and what we'd get from it. So
it basically comes down to purpose of use. So the Diamond cameras and things like that can be hired out for many things, but often they're for student projects that are mainly academic. If all the sports teams want to film something and they all go to the Diamond, they start getting used, they could all be broken or anything like that. They have a variety of equipment that aren't quite as durable as GoPros, and then clubs rack up, damage fees and things like that. And then there's no actual video footage for students wanting to use it for their degrees. So if we centralise it through Sport Sheffield, that's much more available for many clubs who still aren't aware that they can do these things.
Yeah, you can get a GoPro from the Diamond though, like a proper GoPro. And I suppose, if you're thinking that the students are going to damage it, and it's not really a good incentive for Sport Sheffield to buy them either, because they don't want their GoPros to be damaged. And if you look at something like Wednesday, I think I checked the other day, there were about 30 fixtures that went ahead. So realistically, Sport Sheffield aren't going to be able to purchase 30 GoPros, because most of the fixtures were in different places or at different times, different clubs. So I think...
Yeah, absolutely. But, realistically, we want to increase coverage as much as we can. Yeah. We want to make it, affordable for students. And Sport Sheffield want to pursue this. They want performance analysis. They want teams to have publicity. And the access for that should be made clear to people as well.
We'll say thank you for your clarification in that matter. That will answer a lot of questions from our side. So obviously you all have a lot of quite similar manifesto policies, but we want to know why you stand out. So what one policy makes you really different from the others? If we start with Yaz.
I think what makes mine different, I'm not sure if any of the others have put it in, I might have skipped over by accident, but I've actually made it a part of my manifesto that I want to mostly listen to your views and learn what the clubs and people who haven't started to take part in sports yet, what they want to change about Sport Sheffield and sport in the university.
So how do you think you do that?
I think mainly by talking to the club committees more and by making it clear to everyone when they start university, whether that's in first year or whether they're starting a postgraduate degree or they're international students coming in their second or third year, just to make it clear to them that the sports officer and all of the officers are there to listen to them, and they want to hear their opinions.
And Flo, what makes you different?
I think I'm different because I've already thought of a campaign that I want to launch if I did get elected, which is #WeAreAble. Because I think, along with loads of the other officers, they know the importance of mental health and disability issues. And this is definitely a massive gap in sports that needs to be addressed, and people need to come together as union officers. And I don't think it's touched on that much by the other candidates. And also just to increase publicity about We Are International and This Girl Can.
Millie?
Yeah, I think on the disability awareness campaign, that's a really great thing. I think something we're trying to do is still in the process of being finalised with Sportscom this year for varsity. Each year we've had a different varsity charity. So last year we had Sport in Mind, and the year before we did the Rainbow Laces. I think this year we're looking to do one centring around disability in sport and potentially getting water bottles that would be like a suggested donation to a charity such as that. But I think what sets my manifesto apart is the fact that it's more outward looking as well. So part in my manifesto I've got a section for going out into the community and volunteering with Sport Sheffield, because I think as sports students and as students as a whole, we've got a real asset to offer to the community, and we should be going out and doing that and making a difference.
I think for my manifesto, I've actually run all of my ideas past senior members of Sport Sheffield. They are things they want to pursue and implement. I think all of us here obviously recognise the value of social sport. I've actually been very active in trying to help secure funding for that next year through petitioning and also writing a report for the university. I also think, obviously everyone's spoken about publicity and things like that, of social sports particularly. I want to create a social sport committee, so senior social sport leaders who can basically help go to residences personally, speak to people, get them engaged in the programme, make them aware of what is available to them.
Okay, so for me, one thing that rings true with the majority of sports clubs is that their priority is having a Wednesday afternoon off. And this is something that I'm going to say most sports officers will promise, but I've actually got a viable way of doing this. So through the tutorial selection, you can make sure you're free when you need to be. So not everybody needs to be free on a Wednesday for their matches. You might play on a Sunday, for example. And that means you can go to uni on a Wednesday. So you just work the tutorial selection around what works for you.
I mean, won't there be incidences when departments can't accommodate for this? What do you plan to do in that instance?
So it's more of a long-term plan. I know some departments already do this, so we've got the ability to do it. And it's just putting the system in place so it can continue to work over the long term.
I think we're going to move on to a bit more of a serious issue. So we have been told that there are some sports group that partake in hazing activities. We've been told that people have been forced to go swimming into a pond naked in the park and also drink their own vomit. What are you going to do to stop this?
I think that's a massive issue that we need to address. And I think something that needs to happen with the sports officer is there needs to be more communication with the social sex directly, so that there is compulsory drink awareness days that people have to go to, but this isn't adequate, and there needs to be more contact with the sports societies to say compulsory non-drinking socials have to be put in place to ensure that there is a balance. And for these cases, there needs to be severe punishments as well put in for this.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the key thing that needs to be put in place is accountability, because a lot of the time people are doing this because they think they can get away with it. And we need to stamp that out and make it clear that that's not something you can get away with, and it's not something that we want as a sports department.
Yeah, I think not all sports clubs actually are aware, or committees are aware, that you can actually be stripped of your position if hazing is actually by the code of conduct not allowed. And so you can actually have social sex or club captains removed from their positions immediately, and I think that needs to be really hit home to sports clubs. I think it's very important that people are aware of that lad culture affects everyone at university. It affects women on the receiving end of sexist remarks. It affects gay men who hear homophobic remarks in the changing room or anything like that, or boys who want to get involved in sport and they just feel uncomfortable with the whole kind of laddish, lewd behaviour that goes on. So I think that really needs to be addressed, and you kind of need a campaign, a campus-wide campaign, to feel like, you know, put yourself in their shoes, an outside-looking-in campaign to see everyone knows the awareness, basically, of the problem of lad culture, so you can see how it affects other people.
Yeah, I think we need to sort of reward the good behaviour that goes on as well, to show like it's not just all like punishment's one thing, but if we reward the good behaviour that goes on, then that means that more people will want to do the good behaviour. So rather than just saying you have to do sober socials, there should be some sort of way. So like for the moment you have the Commitment to Inclusions Award at Sports Awards, and I think that does really great things in encouraging people to do more sober socials and to like commit more to inclusions, as the award suggests. So.
Yeah, I agree with Millie on that, and I touched on that on Tuesday. It's about providing something like in a positive light, and saying that actually doing that isn't fun, and people don't actually enjoy that and want that to happen. So it's saying how can we create a positive alternative and making that the more appealing choice.
Do you have any thoughts on how to deal with this, Jasmine?
I think what clearly needs to be done is we need to make it clear, obviously, that it's not acceptable, that not only can you be stripped of your position, but I'm pretty sure it's against the university's code of conduct, so you can be kicked out of university for it. So that needs to be made very clear that behaviour like that's just not acceptable.
And while we're on the topic of lad culture, there's also a big problem. Raw is known by some as rapey raw. And do you think this is problematic?
Well, it's definitely a problem.
Well,
I actually think this is somewhere.
Raw in general is a problem with the culture?
I think this is somewhere that the sports officer should work with the women's officer, particularly in promotion of the women's minibus, getting home safe, and also basically speaking to women's committees or women's sports committees, as well as the men's clubs, because obviously you've got men's hockey, women's hockey, all the different clubs often split by gender. They need to come together as the whole club, the whole sport. And basically understand where you are together. And we are all black and gold, so people need to be working together. And it's just not acceptable to have that kind of thing going on.
Yeah, and you can be removed from a union night out for any like sort of behaviour, and I think that needs to be hit home to people. And like people need to report it as soon as possible, and then that person can be removed from the venue, and then further action be taken. So you just have to scan your U card most of the time to go in now. These things can be like people can be held accountable for things like that.
I agree with Jake saying, as cringe as it sounds, that we are all one together and uniting sport under Sheffield University as opposed to our individual clubs. And I think this can be done by the sports officer by making the Facebook profile or making the sports officer a hub for information and a unit to bring clubs together and encourage joint socials. And then I think in that way, having less club divides, that's going to help people feel excluded and marginalised from different groups.
Yeah, I think it's a separate issue, but I think it's wider than just clubs as well, because the sports officer isn't just there for club sport or even just sport that goes on within Sport Sheffield. There's a lot of sport that goes on within societies and things like that. It's all sport, and we should all be representing that sport. So.
I mean, there's a lot of talk about this within socials and nights out, but what about in the everyday circumstances as well? So you might face discrimination in the gym, for example. How can we tackle this?
So one of my policies is about this, about how a lot of people feel like completely unable to go to the gym and use, for example, the weight section because there is a stigma around it. I think we just need to work to reduce that. So I use the weight section quite a lot. I love it. Get in there. And yeah, I think just by reducing the idea that people can't work together, we can, bring people together.
Yeah, I think it's more than that as well, though. I had a friend who was in the gym in the free weight section just about 2 weeks ago, and she was subject to lewd comments by some of the other members using the free weight section. And she was in the free weight section, she was using it, she had an instructor there showing her how to use it. So it's more than just knowing how to use the free weight section, it's about challenging those attitudes. And by continuing things like the This Girl Can campaign and showing people that this behaviour is not acceptable, women can play sport, women can do what they want, anyone can play sport. There isn't a person that can play sport and a person that can't. It's not down to looks or what you wear. And I think we need to get that across and make sure that everyone knows that.
Yeah, so it's kind of about like empowering everyone and making sure they've got the confidence to just do what they want to do, like they shouldn't feel as though they're not able.
And it's the confidence to report it as well. I think you need a system where obviously people are swiping U cards, you know who's in the gym when, you should be able to find someone basically to report it to, and then they can find out who the culprit was. And people need to have confidence that when they report these, that they will be acted upon. So I think the staff also need to work on that as well.
I feel like a tiny slight issue with that is that you don't swipe your U card when you leave, though. So you don't know. Like, you can say, for example, this many of people are here, this person is in here, but you don't know that they've not left.
But you have the approximate time, so...
Yeah, of course, fair enough.
That's all we have time for in the main debate, but if we can get some closing statements from this side, and please keep it brief.
Yeah, okay, so my main policy is about tutorial selection. I also want to get people feeling more competent in the gym, so bringing these pre-made workouts. And also just getting everybody active. You don't have to be involved in a sports club or a team or even any sport, particularly just to be active and healthy and happy.
I'm running on a platform of Sport for All. I'm so passionate about the social sport program, as you can probably tell. And I want that to be extended. I want more free sessions to Residence Life members. And I want clubs to run welcome sessions throughout the year so people can feel they can join a club at any time, not just at the sports fair. I think that's really important. I want to introduce create your own flexible S10 membership plans at better value. At the moment, you're paying a lot of money for things you're not using. I think you should basically have add-ons that you can pay for or not pay for, so you pay for what you are using. And I want to enhance your sporting experience through increased publicity and filming and so on.
So I think my main manifesto points are to do with the community, inclusions, publicity and awareness, development. You can read all that online, but what I really want to do if elected sports officer is to unite all sport. I think there's too much of a division between society sport and sport that is classified as under Sport Sheffield or club sport. We are all sports people at the end of the day. We all play sport, we all enjoy sport, we all enjoy keeping active. And I want to be a sports officer that sees those interests and looks after everyone who plays sport.
Okay, so I want to be sports officer. I'm going to increase inclusivity by launching campaign We Are Able. I'm encouraging students with hashtag We Are International and This Girl Can. And I want to launch a day pass for the gym. And I'm going to increase communication throughout by uniting clubs, as said before. And this is going to make sport in Sheffield grow, which is the ultimate aim, to get as many people to have an incredible time at uni like I've had from sport and from snowboarding.
My manifesto was written under the entire concept of improving mental health in university through sport by reducing the amount of stress that students have, so making sport more accessible to people who think they don't have the time, don't think they have the money or the ability, and showing them that it is possible, they can do it, and just generally improving the view people have on sport. Like with all the charity work that's done, a lot of people don't know about how much work and how much effort goes into that and how much is actually done to try and counteract some of the bad reputations and the things that happen in sport, like the hazing that you were talking about, that hopefully is not that widespread. I've not heard of it before, but hopefully we can counteract that by showing how much good we do and try and prevent that hazing from happening.
Well, thank you very much to our sports officer candidates, and we'll be passing over to studio now for some more punditry. And can we get a round of applause, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Alex. So that was the sports officers debate, and I am joined with the new pundit team. I've got David, Will, and Hugh. Hello, thank you very much for coming. Okay, so I'm going to touch upon very quickly on the Forge and helping sports teams make their videos. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting because I actually met Jake Atkinson a couple of weeks ago at an event, and he told me he was running for sports officer. And this didn't come up in our conversation at all. So it's interesting to me where perhaps this has come out of. But I do know that there is a plan to get cameras installed in Goodwin Sports Hall, cameras at either end, and it's definitely something that's already in the pipeline. And it's a good policy, I think, but it's been badly thought through and needs a bit more refining and a bit more looking at what the teams actually need, where these facilities are needed, and certainly how to get them into somewhere like Norton.
Yeah, and they were mentioning stuff like more reports on sports. If only there was a certain Forge Sport that would do that for us. Anyway, moving on, they're talking about social sport. So Will, they were talking about bringing the social sport and regular sport together. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, obviously, I think the social sport is a great initiative. I don't play a lot. Well, I play with the social sport teams. We've got a Forge football six-a-side team that we play with. So I think it's just a case of getting more people involved in sport, encouraging them to take up different activities within sport, because I think people can be put off, like they have to be the best. But yeah, I think social sport, improving that is a great way to make things work a bit better.
Okay, and David?
Yeah, I think that there's got to be some sort of collaboration between the two. You can't have one completely divided from the other, but there needs to be a divide at the same time. You can't have it merging into one where people are then uncomfortable to join a social sport group because of the pressure of being around some of the best players in the university.
Well, so one of the things that quite a few of the clubs do, and I hope this would extend to every club, is to have a development team or a friendly team which anyone can join and anyone can get involved. And if you do want that sports team sort of atmosphere, that sports team camaraderie and that sort of stuff, then they have these development teams and you can go along, even if your ability isn't perhaps good enough to get into the ones or twos. I know netball, for example, play down to about, I think the sevens play intramural or something. So the two can be merged, and it's just looking at how you can do that with across the board and with all the clubs, and perhaps coming up with some way of standardising that.
Yeah, so inclusions is a massive part of the sports officer, getting more people involved in sport. So what they're saying in many manifestos that there's loads of sports out there, but not many people getting involved. Do you know why do you think people aren't getting involved? Is it the sports officer's fault over the years for not doing things like, we've got the sports fair, but refreshers fair, for example, after Christmas, attendance goes down a bit. So what's your thoughts on that, starting with David?
I think that there's definitely a market for, as I believe Jake was saying, a all-year recruitment, and that if more recruitment was put on in, say, March or in November, when people have tried it for a couple of weeks and then gone, actually no, it's not for me, but other people are looking to pick up on a missed opportunity. I think that's definitely one of the best things to come out of today's debate.
Okay, and Will, anything to add?
Yeah, again, just working with social sport to make that, again, increasing the publicity, making people aware that there's teams available that they can join if they haven't got involved in sport. As Hugh said, development teams, again, another fantastic idea. And it came right up at the end in the debate there about the gym and people using the gym. Possibly would have liked to see a little bit more about that, because maybe if people don't have the time to join sports teams, then they can use the gym. But again, it's just destigmatising.
So with the gym, they were talking about some people don't feel comfortable in the gym, and that's why they're not going to the gym as much or doing sport. Hugh, what do you think these officers can do to improve that, though?
Well, it shouldn't really be down to the sports officer. People just shouldn't be going to the gym and making others feel uncomfortable. I like the fact that Katie Rourke has come up with a policy for weights, for girls-only weight sessions. Brilliant idea. But it just needs to be a zero-tolerance approach, and it needs to be a change in the culture at the gym. And that can only be achieved just by letting people know that's not acceptable at whatever level, whether you're the sports officer, whether you're a member of Sports Sheffield staff, or whether you're just a gym user. You just need to make it clear that these things are not acceptable, and that's not the way we're going to have things in our gym. Okay, so we're talking one big part of inclusions is where the lad culture side of the sport, which I'm not sure if we've all witnessed it or not, but the idea of hazing, as Alex was mentioning, people being forced to eat their own sick and things like that. The sports officers all agreed completely that it's just not on and it shouldn't happen. So what do you think the sports officers, they mentioned a bit on terms of communicating with all the sports teams, making more punishments, but also rewarding the good stuff the sports do. Do you think that's a good thing, rewarding people for the good they do? Will that outweigh the punishments?
I don't really think you should be rewarding people for, not doing something horrendous, something that is in itself a life-breaking event, something that can be traumatizing for people. I think, rewarding someone for not doing that is totally unnecessary. There should be no need for a reward for not being a horrible, horrible person.
It's a difficult thing to police, because if the reports that I've heard this year are that a sports team went to, after their normal social, a group of them went back to a team member's basement and did this sort of thing in the team member's basement. Now, at what point does that stop being a team event and start being a group of people who want to do that? It's so difficult to draw that line to police that. Obviously, I would say don't do that at all. It's weird. But
yeah,
if
and also,
some people genuinely see that as something fun to do and as part of the culture, and
yeah.
it's working out how to stop people from doing that, even when it's outside of Sports Sheffield and the sports officer's jurisdiction.
Yeah, and I'm going to move on very quickly now to talking about Wednesday afternoons. It's been a big thing for sports officers for various years, but some of them have came up with some good stuff. For example, Katie saying you can pick your own seminars, be more flexible around it. Do you think that's a good idea, Will?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge logistical issue more than anything. I think, again, as Katie said, putting in a long-term plan, something that can be done, started now and over several years, working with different departments around the university to make sure that people can have a bit of free time to get involved with more sport. But obviously, difficult to... you can't please everyone, I don't think. I think it's quite
very
impossible.
quickly, David, your input?
I think some of the departments that have busier timetables and some of them that don't even have optional seminars, ones that have one set seminar for a specific time, or even one that has all of their seminars on a Wednesday afternoon, they're not going to be able to accommodate that every single time, every single year. With the increase in different courses and the number of students at university, rooms are going to get booked up a lot quicker, and there's not going to be enough time in the week.
Very quickly, closing statement in one word. Who do you think will win?
Who do I think will win? It's really tough, actually. I can't judge it. I think the candidates across the board are far better than last year.
For me, it was Jake Houchon. I think some of his policies resonated with what a lot of people thought about social sport.
Yep, and David?
I think Millie did the best, even though Jake did recover from a bruising start.
Brilliant. Okay, so that was our punditry and analysis on our sports officers candidates this year. And we're now going to go back to Alex, where we're going to go to have a look at the education officers.
Exciting question.
So am I.
Hello, everyone. We're back in Fusion, and we are joined by the education officers. I like to think this is probably going to be the showground of tonight. So very much the same as before. We're going to get a quick opening statement from each person, and we're going to start over here and work our way around.
Hi, I'm Stuart. I'm a second-year politics and philosophy student. My background's in activist groups like the Free University of Sheffield and the National Campaign Against Fees and Cuts, as well as SU campaigns like Chef Better Than TEF and the NSS boycott. I basically want to bring, as my campaign slogan suggests, a grassroots approach to the Students' Union. So that means making our campaigns have strong demands, democratic and open. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Caitlin. I am a postgraduate archaeology student, and I have had a lot of experience in running clubs in my undergrad before. I'm running for education officer because I firmly believe all students deserve a good education and proper representation and someone who cares about their student rights.
Hi, I'm Grace, and I'm a third-year economics and politics student. I'm the current chair of the economics department's student staff forum, which is completely student-led. I'm running on a platform that I want to ensure that everybody understands what their SU stands for about education campaigns. I want to get everyone involved, whether that be accessible campaigning or academic reps.
So, my name is Beth. I'm a third-year planning student. So, I'm the president of the planning SOC. I'm an SU counsellor, and I've also been really involved in academic representation in my department. So, my three main policy aims are into our education is outstanding, our voices are heard, and our fees are all inclusive. So, this includes stuff like totally reforming staff-student committees, so students set the agendas, and also campaigning for online submission and affordable graduations. But I'm sure I'll expand on that later.
Hi, my name's Ed. I'm a postgrad student of translation studies. My background is in education and providing education. I want to create education where students have a voice in every single step of the way. My policies, I feel, are innovative, collaborative, and I think they're specific, and I think they're attainable.
Thank you very much, everyone. So we're going to start very briefly. If you could be any comic book hero, who would you be and why? Very quickly, anyone?
Catwoman for a lot of reasons, mostly because I am the largest cat lady, and also I think her superpowers are really impressive.
I'd probably be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I would be Raphael. For no specific reason. He's the red one.
In response to that, I'm afraid I'm not a cat person. I'm definitely a dog person, but I don't know if there's really a superhero that fits with that. Maybe like... What's that? Thunderdog. Underdog. All these dog ones.
I'm going to say the Incredible Hulk because green's my favourite colour.
I was really excited about this question, and now I'm not, but I'm going to say Supergirl, I think. Yeah? Yeah, well, Superwoman. Thank you.
We'll take that, we'll take that. So given that education is very much based in the university, what do you think the role of education officer really is? I'll throw that open to anyone that wants to answer.
I would say that the education officer role is a campaigning role. I definitely think we should be the education officer and the student union should be having conversations with the university. But first and foremost, it should be supporting students' campaigns and making demands both of the university and also of the government.
I'd say it's the education officer. The most important thing is bridging the gap between the university and the students' union and really sort of acting as a voice for the students. I feel like out of all the roles, it's the one that's most connected to the university. So I feel like the students' union education officer is a really important bridge.
I think that the university is obviously where education is provided, but where education actually happens is in the students. It's in our own experiences, and I think it's important that the students then therefore have a strong voice with which we can, like you say, bridge the gap between the students and the people that provide the education.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's said, that we campaign what the students want and make sure the students understand what we're campaigning, and also bridging that gap definitely between the university and the students, because the university is providing the education. We need to make sure they're doing it right.
But when we talk about students, there's a lot of talk about undergraduates, but what about postgraduates and mature students and student parents? How can we engage those people?
Okay, I've got my main policy is actually quite heavily geared towards that. I'm a postgraduate student myself. My courses consists really heavily of, in fact, the vast majority of my course are either international, mature, commute, have families, or they're part-time. So it's something that I've had to deal with being an undergrad course rep, but now being a postgrad course rep as well as a faculty rep and chair of the faculty committee, is reaching out to people who it's not as easy to reach out to as it is often for undergraduates who are in this university bubble the whole time. And it's something that I really want to engage with, creating a system where academic reps who might find this quite difficult to do because it's not something that you always come across, and it might be quite difficult for a new academic rep to find the methods to reach these people. And I'd like to create a toolkit, a system that has a sort of many different approaches in order to get the best reach possible and to basically hear the student voice in the best way possible.
So what would be in your toolkit?
It would include, the Arts and Humanities faculty is actually working on something similar. It's kind of the reason I actually wanted to become a candidate, so it could maybe make it sort of across the whole university. It includes things like making sure that people are able to contact student reps, not just through, say, social media, which might seem like the obvious one, but also through things like suggestion boxes, in person as well, making sure that there's student representation in international groups as well, because often if there's a high proportion of international students and the course rep is a home student, there can often be social problems there where the people just don't meet the people or see the course rep. So that would be some of the things that would be in it. Obviously, I'd expand on that were I to have the role, but that is the starting point.
I agree with everything Ed's just said. I think another important thing is making sure there's a good mix of students from different backgrounds on staff student committees, so they've got the voice head. So making sure there's an international rep on every committee if there's an international students on that course, reps for every postgrad course. I think that's just really important.
Yeah. On the issue of postgraduates and how we work with postgraduates, one of my policies is to campaign against poor working conditions for postgraduate students. So at the moment, the UCU, the University and Colleges Union, is running campaigns on casualisation. Casualisation is one of the biggest issues facing universities at the moment. Effectively, casualisation is 0-hour contracts. It can be so extreme to the extent that there are some teachers who, according to the amount of time they're paid, only have 15 minutes to mark a coursework essay. So that is not providing better quality teaching. And I would say what we should be doing as a students' union is working with the UCU, the college union, and basically trying to have power against the university to try and campaign for better pay, better conditions. Yeah, that's why.
While I absolutely agree with what you're saying, Stuart, I'm a PGT, I'm a postgraduate taught student, so that, while it does apply to PGR students, for me personally and the people that I interact with, that is that's something that they wouldn't have experience of. So I think, while I think it's a great policy to have, I think that we also need to be thinking of a more wide scale of everybody in postgrad. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that's just one of the issues that we can campaign on, and I think the important thing to stress about working conditions is that they don't just affect the people that are teachers; they affect our whole education. If a teacher only has 15 minutes to mark an essay, your feedback's not going to be as good, and it affects our whole education. So, yeah.
Can I just very cryptically say, tell me about it?
Yeah.
I've had it, yeah.
So we've heard a bit there about some of your policy ideas, but I want to know, what is your most important policy? Anyone?
Yeah, well, my most important, I think the most important thing that we're facing at the moment is the Teaching Excellence Framework. It's going to force marketisation on universities, increase tuition fees, and basically it is the biggest attack on higher education we've seen since the 2010 tripling of tuition fees. And it's a very downhill slope towards the American market system where, for instance, you can see such things as universities spending more on marketing than they do on actual teaching, and that's incredibly dangerous. It could see the closure of public universities. It could see, tuition fees going up, working conditions get worse for staff, etc., etc.
So what would you propose to do about it?
So one of the things I definitely will be doing is continuing the campaigns that exist, like the NSS boycott. I would take the NSS boycott further and say that we should be pushing for a boycott of the DLHE or DILI, which is another aspect of the TEF, one of the metrics used in the TEF to increase tuition fees. It's the Graduate Employment Statistics Survey. As well as that, I think we should be working with Hallam students, college students, university staff, and making it a broader and more national campaign.
But how realistic is it that we can actually make a difference? And how realistic is it that government policy can be changed? Because at the end of the day, that's where the issue lies.
Yeah. Well, I think we've already seen that the NSS boycott has had an impact. Recently, it's been announced that the government will be using 3 years' worth of NSS data as opposed to 1. That shows that they are worried about what's going on. They do think that the NSS boycott is going to affect it, and they can't carry on this forever and ever. 3 years down the line, what are they going to do? And I think we need to keep the pressure on.
Nationwide, the NSS, it's been up 10% on people doing it.
Yes, but the key universities, so 25 Students' Union across country, are boycotting the NSS. We've just had it announced a week ago that we are almost 10% down from last year, and I think that's fantastic. We're just starting to see, it was up the previous report in Sheffield, it was up from what it was the year before, but now, as the campaigning has really got going, we're really seeing an impact of the NSS boycott.
And what does everyone else think about the campaigns about tuition fees and TEF? Is it realistic?
I think they are really doing a good job, but I think it needs to be more accessible for everybody. I've spoken to a lot of students, asking them what they think about the NSS boycott. Do they agree with it? Do they understand how it links to TEF? And everyone kind of just gives that smile, like, yeah. And you just kind of have to just quickly explain how it links and what are the arguments for, what are the arguments against, because I don't think they're quite clear enough. Everyone says they just want it in that one place, arguments for, arguments against, and justify why the SU is boycotting the NSS.
So what do you think?
I think we should boycott the NSS, but if you are boycotting the NSS, remember to give your university feedback in an alternative form. We've all mentioned academic reps. Reach out to them. Tell them how you think about your degree. That's not what the NSS is for anyway. You shouldn't rant about how your degree is being performed on the NSS. Tell your academic reps and fill out your module feedback reports, because that's how your department gets feedback.
I think the main problem with the NSS boycott this year is the incentives that have been put in by departments, sort of counter-incentives. So my department, for example, if we get a 65% completion rate, it's giving us £500 towards our ball, and it's giving each eligible student a £10 Amazon voucher. And that is a really hard incentive to compete with. So what I think needs to be done is, I think the union needs to provide incentives as well and really increase awareness of what's going on and what's important.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, I think we're all pretty much on the same page when we're talking about the National Student Survey. But I think for a lot of people, kind of the idea of the sort of protesting and things like that is often kind of has this, effect with people where they're sort of just in principle against the idea of causing a fuss. But about boycotting the NSS is absolutely not causing a fuss. It's doing nothing. It's like it's a non-action. It's so simple to do. And I think if you explain, if you have the sort of TEF laid out in front of you, it's not so clear cut, and it's called the Teaching Excellence Framework, which is quite misleading because it sounds like it's providing teaching excellence. But if it's laid out in front of you, I think the only logical conclusion is that if we fill in the NSS, then collectively we're compromising the quality of education, and it's nothing to do with causing a fuss or anything. It's about fighting for the quality of education.
See, my issue is that being fully against TEF, I feel like the NSS had so many benefits to it for the university through, like, for example, I'm an international student who came here because archaeology is ranked 13th best in the world because of things like the NSS that give it that ranking. And so my department definitely benefits from things like it, and I'm concerned about how TEF did take over the NSS, and it utilized it to the point where it's not necessarily the NSS's fault. I think that we need to move on from something else besides it, because the NSS has proven beneficial to plenty of departments that are bringing in international students.
I think your point is valid that you might have things against it. However, the NSS is definitely not perfect. For example, as a dual honour, my results would only go to my home department. Mm-hmm. So anything I said about politics wouldn't go there. So it's really not representing students' views. Right. But it is valid points you've got, and it's important for the SU to justify why they are taking that stance and counter-arguing these valid points.
Right, and I do like how Stuart was mentioning we're moving on from that. We're trying to find other things that we could push our energy towards, because there is a great loss to boycotting the NSS when it does provide so much that does benefit the university and students, because I know that my department would be next to nothing without the increase of international students in the postgraduate program. So I don't know about other procedures that could be done to take the place of what the NSS does.
Yeah, I mean, the background to this is there are two arguments going on. One is whether we should boycott the NSS as a tactic against the TEF, and one is the NSS good? And I would actually answer to both. I would say the NSS doesn't provide quality results. It's been shown to, because of implicit bias, punish BME and women academics. A lot of studies have shown that the survey itself, students don't even actually read properly, and I think the kind of results that come from the NSS, we'd be far better entering into a dialogue between students and staff rather than having metrics like the NSS.
Can I just chime in and say I think I really agree with Stuart on that one. I don't believe the NSS is a very good measure of teaching excellence. I remember reading somewhere where someone likens it to basically asking, creating a diet plan for students by asking them what their favourite meal is. It's a similar kind of thing where basically the salient things when you ask a student about their module or their course and they give course feedback, there are two salient things that really affect how they feel about the course. One of them is whether they get high marks. If they get high marks, they're more likely to rate their course highly. So which obviously you can imagine a situation where if a very easy course then would get high SS scores. Another thing that affects it is kind of like what Stuart was saying, is charisma and whether people like their teachers. And I mean, I'm not against liking your teacher, that's great obviously, but that shouldn't cover up, that shouldn't be an excuse for poor teaching. The NSS doesn't measure teaching quality, and it shouldn't be used to do that at all in any way.
So we've heard quite a lot about this, and we feel like you're pretty much all on the same page regarding that. But what are you going to do differently if you're going to continue that campaign? What will you do differently? I'll open that to anyone.
Is that about that campaign specifically, or?
No, anything.
Okay, well, I think...
What policy differentiates you?
I have 7 policies, 3 of which more sort of general things that I'd like to be continuing throughout the year. For example, like the boycott of the NSS and things like that. 4 of my other ones I think are things that, 1, won't cost very much to do, and 2, will be very easy to implement. One of those, I think, is creating an online encyclopedia of student-made study material. What I mean by that is, For example, I studied languages as my undergrad. And for me, flashcard software was an immense help, and I give it a lot of credit for my success in my degree. I've talked to a good friend of mine who's a junior doctor. So he was a medic, and he said the same thing, that people on their course, if they use this software, they do really well in their exams, but it's not sort of linked by the uni to modules. And there are modules that do this. For example, the Czech department, they provide flashcard decks for each of their modules that students can download and use. That is something that could be used in all sorts of different modules, and it would be very easy to implement, and it would just increase just knowledge retention and exam success massively.
Do you not think it could encourage plagiarism or
well, it's not plagiarism.
Skipping lectures?
Well, I don't think it's. I mean, the word in Czech for house, whatever it is, it's not plagiarism to learn that from another student. I think it's fine to collaborate as students, learning the same knowledge, which is objective.
Okay, and what will anyone else do differently?
I think I've mentioned this a few times, accessibility. So making sure this is something you can do straight away, making sure everyone's on the same page about our campaigns, making sure that they understand the arguments against and for. I think it's just a very simple thing that we just need to enhance.
Yeah, I think on that, I think you're absolutely right that the student union campaign should always be as accessible as possible. Obviously, sorry to go back to TEF and NSS boycott, but
if we can keep this as brief as possible, we're running out of time very, very quickly.
Yeah. But anyway, they're already very confusing concepts. They're called the Teaching Excellence Framework and the National Student Survey. It takes a long time to explain that it's this 3-tier system of forcing universities to compete against each other. And I would say to that the most important thing, obviously we should make the wording good in our campaigns, but the most important thing is to go out there and talk to students. And I think more conversations is basically what we need. More conversations, more campaigns, more talking about it, getting the word out. That's why.
And Caitlin, in a few words, what are you going to do differently?
I come with an international perspective, and so I want to utilize the connections I have in international students and in postgraduates and in mature students to get their feedback to make our education ultimately better. My main policy that I like to focus on is helping students progress through their coursework, and I think that your education does come first, so I want to be someone who has a dialogue with these students, especially those with struggles, to get the most out of their education and our programs.
Thank you. We're going to go to closing statements now, so if you can very briefly sum up one of your main policies and why you think people should vote for you.
I think that being at the university is an absolute privilege. It's a time that it goes so fast, but whether you're here for 3, 4, 5 years, it goes so fast. And when you leave university, you won't be in the same amazing environment that you are now. And I think we should celebrate that. One of the things that I really want to celebrate is having talks from PhD students and research people who are doing research at the university, so that even, say, a history student can find out the amazing stuff that's going on in physics, or a chemistry student can find out the amazing stuff that's going on in sociology, and we can just celebrate the information that's being created at this institution.
I think everything I want to do has learning and teaching at the heart. And basically, education is the most important part of student life. It's the most important part of what we come here to do. So I think what's really important is making sure students' voices are heard, totally reforming the way that we give feedback. So that's, say, moving away from the NSS, moving towards more module evaluation, mid-module evaluation, just really checking in on how everything's going throughout your degree and not just at the end.
I really want to campaign for getting everyone involved. I've talked a lot about accessibility, and I want to improve the academic rep system. As a chair of a student-led student staff forum, I know how successful they can be and how they can be improved. So get Grace on the case.
My policies involve engaging students in their education and making sure that their academic needs are met and making sure that they are represented, especially if they are underrepresented groups. And I want to make sure that policies reflect their rights and their needs. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've talked quite a lot about fighting the TEF and having grassroots democratic campaigns, so I'll just briefly touch on one of my other policies, and that's prioritising mental health. So I've kind of touched on postgraduate working conditions, but I also want to push for fairer extensions and extenuating circumstances policies so that they take into account mental health just as seriously as physical health, and also pushing for more funding to DDSS and counselling. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much to our candidates. Can I just remind everyone that tomorrow there will be a referendum debate in Coffee Revs between 7 and 8. So if you want to know any more about the referendum or talk about it, you could go along then. But for now, we're going to pass back over to studio with some punditry. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome back to the punditry of Forge Debates. That was the debate for Education Officer. You are now joined by me, Emily, and I'm joined by B, Matthew and David.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Hi.
First of all, first impressions of the education debate. It was highly contested. It was nice to see a lot of people running for it. What are your first impressions?
I think when they weren't talking about the NSS, there seemed to be a bit of progress there, but it was a bit too preoccupied with that for about for the majority of the debate.
Yeah, definitely. I think there were certainly some kind of candidates who were speaking a lot more. There were a couple who potentially didn't get as much of their word in as they may have liked. But I do think it was a good kind of lively debate in terms of, even if it was mostly about the NSS, what they said about the NSS was interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's a shame that it did go on about the NSS so much, because I can't say that I have a good idea of any of their policies in any specific way. Like, especially in the closing statements just then, they were saying improve student engagement, but it's like, that's such a general thing. Like,
it's also such a shame considering that this campaign will be finished by the time that one of them is in the role. So it didn't really give us any really good idea of what they were going to do during their year.
Yeah, and I think what you were saying there, David, about improved student engagement and things like that, well, that is the job role. You're applying to improve student engagement, but the way that you are, your manifesto should not just be that general aim that is your job role. It should be how you're going to achieve it.
We need to know how they're going to improve education.
And do you know what? It was a real pity that that there was such a focus on the NSS and TEF and this kind of stuff, because instrumental stuff that is... just dropped what I needed to use. Instrumental stuff that is actually going to matter was not touched on. So, for instance, for the umpteenth time, someone is campaigning for free printing, but there's also things like Stu's actually got quite an interesting policy revolving around mental health on improving extensions and extenuating circumstances. Now, there are plenty of people who really depend on these, and making these very accessible is a very good point.
Definitely.
But it just was passed by.
I think there were quite a few manifesto points that I kind of noted down that were of interest to me that weren't mentioned at all. So Grace kind of touched on something that the welfare officer debate talked about: welfare support, mental health training given to personal tutors, which I thought was a really great policy. And we had Bethany's accessible key texts policy, which I thought was another really kind of unique one.
Yeah, and very different.
Yeah, I'd agree. The one thing that sort of unites us all here is the one thing that we all have in common is the fact we're students. We're here to learn, and it would have been nice to hear a bit more about what they're going to do to help our education instead of a campaign that's going to end quite soon. So we've talked a bit about the role of the education officer. I wanted to talk about something that wasn't really discussed that much in the debate, and that's the role of personal tutors. I know it can be different between faculties about how much of an impact your personal tutor has, how much time you spend with them. Was there anything that stood out in the debate, or is there anything that you would like to see from an education officer regarding a personal tutor?
I definitely think it was a point that was missed, and it could have been discussed a lot more. I think, again, the kind of welfare support that Grace spoke about in her manifesto was good, but I definitely think there should be some kind of levelling across the board of all departments in terms of personal tutor help, because it does seem that many departments are different in the services that are offering from their personal tutors.
Yeah, there's certainly quite a big difference in terms of the quality of personal tutors, even within departments. In my first year, I had, and second year, there has been a very big difference. I've had two personal tutors. One has been very, very engaging. The other was completely absent. So yeah, that's something which wasn't touched on that probably should have been.
David?
Yeah, I can't really add anything to that, really, because, again, I just feel like it was talked about so little that I can't really... It's like getting blood from a stone,
I know. I think it was Stuart that actually said said some fact about tutors only having 15 minutes to mark academic
Yes,
mark
yeah.
essays, which, you know, it hits home quite a bit, doesn't it?
Well, that's extraordinarily frustrating
Yeah.
because for people whose you know, whether I think he was referring specifically to coursework, perhaps coursework essays, but you know, I'm sure that may apply to exams slightly as well, at the very least. And the fact that people's degrees, if you stack all that up, people's degrees are based by around someone having to rush within 15 minutes to look quickly over something you've spent months preparing. It's abysmal.
Mm. Well, thank you very much for your very insightful punditry, guys. That was an interesting education debate with, I mean, it was slightly swayed to perhaps one topic, but I'm sure there's a lot more that can be said, and all the manifestos can be found. And a lot of them have got interesting points, but I just don't think they were discussed to the full extent. So thank you guys for discussing that with me. And we're going to throw back over... Sorry, we're not going to throw back over. Thank you very much for watching. This has been the second night of Forge Debates.